First, I'd like to thank NextGov for the opportunity to come all the way to Seattle from Boise. It's unique for me to actually do a direct flight as opposed to 2 or 3 to get to where I'm going, usually to DC. And I'm glad we're ending the day with a non-controversial issue. So, as mentioned, I've with the Department of the Interior, been there for about 12 years. Before that, I was a Navy test pilot. Spent a career in the Navy flying on and off of carriers. So I'm used to risk, and so putting drones into Interior was certainly along the lines of what I've been doing. I want to talk about our success, and I'll talk about why I think that's a success, but also the roadmap. I think, I go to a lot of these conferences and people talk about what they've done, and then they don't really leave me with anything. So I want to leave you with a roadmap that I think, whether you're a government agency and you're building, or you're buying, or you're a private concern and you're looking to sell, I think this roadmap works very well. So objectives, as was mentioned earlier, I'm here to help pay that forward. I won't use all the pirate metaphors, but in my MBA class we had a motto, and that was collaborate to graduate. So I am looking to provide you with opportunities to learn from us, because we learn from other folks. I'm going to talk about this roadmap and provide you, I hope, with some ideas on how you can do this, and not just in this technology, but in any technology. And this is really about IT in the third dimension, and IT for the masses in the third dimension. And I'll talk about it. So why us? So I see a lot of people stand up in front and tell me things, and I'd like to know some of the background about why I should listen, and so I want to offer that to you. Our drone program has been in place for 12 years. We've had a lot of drones. We have over 400 drones in our fleet inventory. We're just about to award our first commercial services contract. Ours is second in size, diversity, and complexity to DoD, and that's it. We're also helping a lot of other federal agencies, state agencies, and even cities develop responsible drone programs. We've done over 12,000 flights, over 30 mission applications, and we have over $50 million in documented savings. So we like to measure a lot of favorable coverage, and we were very fortunate last year to receive an industry award, End User Innovation Award. And probably the most important metric is, with all those flights over all that public land that we are stewards of, we've had no public complaints, which is the best metric of all. So, overview. We're going to talk about these 6 elements of my hexacopter here. We're going to talk about vision, strategy, planning, execution, measurement, and then the incorporation and repeat. And again, I think these apply very well whether you're looking to build a system, looking to buy a system from someone else, or you're looking to sell a system to the federal government. So again, we picked a topic with no challenges. People think of drones. They think of somebody, firing a missile off of it. That's where they kind of started from. They've been around forever, as long as there's been aircraft. But they also think of issues of privacy, safety, data security. We've heard a lot of discussion about that. And of course, it's changed, so there are these huge cultural issues. And like most federal managers, I was given a mandate to do it with no additional personnel, no additional money, and to have it done yesterday and have it done well. So other than those challenges, it was an easy lift. Okay. Go back one here. It's going to go too fast. So let's talk about the inspiration. Vision is the thing that inspires people to get on board. It also provides the traction that you need when things get tough. It needs to be compelling to multiple parties. It needs to be easy to remember. Who remembers what the motto for Nike is? Right? Easy to remember. Just do it. Right? If you can get that relevance to what you're doing, your mission, it becomes logically sticky. People can relate that to what they're responsible for. If it speaks to their emotion, then it becomes emotionally sticky, and you gain their commitment. And commitment is always infinitely better than compliance. And people, I think, don't really appreciate the value of a good story. Everything you're wearing, everything you own, everything you listen to, watch, is all because someone had a great story that convinced you that that's what you should be doing, wearing, buying, driving, or whatever. And so having a good vision is incredibly important. So our vision was based on the fact that we are the largest single land steward in the United States. 1 in every 5 acres is managed by the Department of the Interior, and it's 9 bureaus. And it's all public land. And so we don't have enough people, enough equipment, enough technology to do that as well as we'd like to for the American public. And so that was part of our big lift, was how do we get this technology to make this job easier, to close our current gaps, but also to leapfrog to the traditional pace of technology so we can get to where we want to be 10 years from now in 2 or 3 years. And we have to remember, not only are we using all this, we have all this public land, but it also contains some critical national infrastructure and resources that we are responsible for protecting as well. And so along those lines, we developed this vision. It's now 6 S's, but the first 4 developed were really mission oriented. That sensing. We're a land management agency. We manage your land, and we make decisions off of the technology, the sensing, the information, the science that we get. So we now have better tools to do that. We're one of the few agencies that runs towards fire, floods, volcanoes, and so we can do that more safely. We also operate in some very diverse and very treacherous terrain, so we can remove some of our folks from having to go out there and do that by using this airborne IT. Savings, everyone is about that. We are doing that with drones. We talked about the $50 million. And a lot of what we do is decided by someone or something else. Fires are not scheduled, animal migrations vary, floods, volcanoes, and you name it. And so now we can be much more responsive. It's much easier to pull a drone out of my backpack than to go down to the airport, contract a helicopter, and go out there, and also much less costly. And then STEM and sustainment. We've talked a lot about the millennials. Let's talk about not only the millennials, but the Gen Z, the generation behind them. How are we going to get those young people to go into science, technology, engineering, math, which is very important for our department, but also want to get out into these lands that they own and participate in that, protect those lands, and maybe become government employees that are helping to protect that. How do we sustain that? And I think that drone application is one we found is very helpful there. So strategy, this is the next step. And this is probably one of, at least for me personally, one of the most overused and least understood and misapplied words. Usually you ask someone their strategy, they give you one word or one line, right? But they don't tell you, where they're going, and maybe more importantly, where they're not going to go. And they don't talk about, what instruments are they going to use to get there? Are they going to build the software themselves? Are they going to contract it out? What are the instruments they're going to use? And what are they going to do differently today in this strategy than probably the last time they did this? What are the differentiators? And then how are they going to know which one goes first and how fast you can go? I find that's critically important and one thing that's often missed. And then how do you know if it's working, right? So those are some critical parts of the strategy that we put in place. So we aligned it to our resources. We don't have DoD predators because we don't operate off of runways, and we don't have that kind of infrastructure. So we're using small unmanned aircraft, and we're buying them commercially because where DoD operates theirs, they can do a lot of things that you wouldn't want me to do because I'd be taking away frequency spectrum and a lot of other things. So we aligned it to our personnel. We have PhDs and masters in biology, firefighters, law enforcement officers, all trained to use these. We worked closely with industry, and I emphasize that, to try before you buy. We go to all the conferences. We partner with industry. We partnered with DoD. We actually got about $25 million of their excess small unmanned aircraft inventory for operational test and evaluation. We found out that their aircraft had issues in terms of the frequency, but also didn't have the resolution in the sensors that we needed for our mission. And so we transitioned there to the commercial sector. Our organization's got about 1,000 cumulative years of aviation experience, but we reached out to our really smart partners in NASA, DoD, and industry across the drone industry. And that through that partnerships and developing policy, we just learned much faster than we could otherwise. And then we have our strategies there, but that public acceptance was a huge part of our strategy because we work for the American public, and if that's not one of your strategic measures, then you need to start over again. So planning, and I'm amazed to see so many times where this is overlooked. We're past one. Thank you. See, that's bad planning. Okay, let's hopefully stop there. So, planning before you execute. And a lot of people plan really long and for the huge, the end product. And one thing I learned in my MBA was this minimally viable product. Get a product out there, start testing it, get that feedback from your customers so that you can continue to improve that. Plan small, plan short. Every success, every rung up the ladder you go should be celebrated. I learned some magic words. A lot of resistance goes away when you tell them you're piloting or you're doing a prototype, or this is just a temporary program. And if you've been in government, there are agencies, there are people, processes, and policies that can be significant showstoppers. I try to avoid those if at all possible, and then work hard on courting ones that I have to work with. And then remember that no plan survives first contact with reality. So make sure you build some agility in there. And the last piece is you've got to plan for the haters, because there will be haters. There'll be haters because they're jealous of what you're doing. There'll be haters because they don't believe in it, or they believe that their solution is better. And why I say to plan for that is you can be really sidetracked, and your people can be awfully discouraged if they don't anticipate that and know that's going to happen, and just accept that as part of the process. Execution. I like to say that a great idea, poorly executed, is never a great idea, because it'll never happen. So that execution is, keep going past one. Execution is incredibly important, and you need to plan for that and practice that execution. I'll let you get. So execution is incredibly important, because if you don't execute, you'll never get the product, you'll never get the measurement you're looking for, and again, those haters will come out. So in execution, you're looking for what I like to call unconscious competence. And as a carrier pilot, that's what we practice and practice and practice, so that your hands and feet are doing things you're not really sure why, but it works and it gets you safely aboard. I also want to talk about measurements, because a lot of people can overcomplicate measuring so that you never get to measure anything. The old saying that the best is the enemy of better, and better is the enemy of good enough, but there's one thing that's the enemy of every one of those, and that's nothing. So if you don't measure anything, you've got nothing. And if you didn't measure it, it never happened. That's why we keep score in ball games, and also, no single measure is perfect. So don't treat it as a go or no go. This was a fire actually in Oregon last August. Used a drone, spotted this spot fire well beyond the fire line. So imagine the visibility is about 100 feet, and this is in infrared. So they spot this spot fire way behind the firefighters. They bring in a team using the drone to guide them in. They put this about 5-acre fire out. Had they not put it out, they never would have found it, and it would have taken out about $50 million worth of power infrastructure and land value. So like I said, we're already seeing this. We're also seeing a rule of thumb, and don't discount rules of thumb. Each of you have a rule of thumb on how long it takes you to get to work, how long it takes you to do other tasks, and they're very valuable. They're not always accurate every time, but they're a good rule of thumb. And what we've found, out of 12,000 drone flights, we're able to do a task in about 1/7 the time and about 1/10 the cost of the traditional means. Now we're replacing mostly ground activities and some air activities in small areas because we're not going far beyond line of sight in most of our applications. And fire is one of the different ones we are. But that measurement has really helped us define the value of putting this IT in the air. And I can't say enough as well about this incorporate, repeat. So our organization is, this will be our 10th year as the only Department of Interior organization that is ISO 9001 2015 certified. So what is that? It's an international quality standard. Every single year our 12 core processes are internally audited and most importantly externally audited and certified. And that tells us that we're not only doing what we say, but we can prove what we're doing. And so when folks come in, whether it's our customers or new employees, we're able to tell them, here's what we do, and we know that that's the fact. And as we learn, we incorporate that into our processes. So, again, when you're undertaking a technology innovation, you need to stick with it. There will be a lot of instances where you will feel like it's not worth it. But let the data tell you that, and not folks on the outside. And remember, unlike your driver's license, to get on the road, anybody can be called an expert. They don't have to show you a license, or a document from some university to say that they're an expert. So I want to leave some time for questions, but key takeaways here. And by the way, for folks in the room, I have a one-page handout because, again, I think that you ought to be able to leave with something, not just the reminder of what maybe was on these slides. But success is less about the technology, I believe, and more about how you go about it. That's what's going to really give you the success. You can have the best idea. Edison figured out 1,000 ways not to build a light bulb, right? So it's not the technology, but how you go about it. And you need to have that vision because the vision is what inspires, and that's the fuel. It also is the traction when things get slippery. The strategy is incredibly important because it not only guides your initial direction, but every decision you're going to make after that, you should be able to bounce that off the strategy, and it should be consistent. The planning, that helps you get ready to execute and helps you not only get ready to that first execution, but then once you hit reality to adjust and be agile so that you can still be relevant in your execution. No overtime in life, so you need to execute well. You need to be disciplined, and again, that goes back to your planning and measurement. I just find that in the government space we are so afraid of a measurement because our program will be canceled, or we're going to get a bad review because of that. No measurement is perfect, but no measurement is bad. So measure something and then evolve and go to that. Just like with your program, incorporate what you learn in your measurements and keep refining those. You probably all have refined your measurements for how long it takes you to go and do different things based on experience. So continue to do that. And remember that all those dinosaurs today will be tomorrow's jet fuel. So don't worry so much about the haters and those that are working against you. Thank you for the opportunity. I could talk for days about our drone program, but I really wanted to focus on the things that I thought that made our program and I think can make any IT any technology program or anyone that's looking to sell that technology really work for you. So thank you. Questions? Everyone wants to get out early.
When it comes to execution, in your experience, what do you think, what do you see as barriers where people are not executing well, or what kind of promotes more expedient execution?
Yeah, great question. So I think there's a number of things. First, people have to know what the plan is and what are the parameters for executing the plan. And I find that what's up in here is incredibly clear to me. But I have a responsibility to get that out to all those that are executing it. So I think that's the first thing, is communication, and then providing that feedback. So this is how we're going to execute, and then you read back how that's going to be done. And I think the other thing in execution is we need to be able to fail early, fail often, succeed long, succeed strong. And so you have to have a just culture. And I had mentioned that in one of the slides there. We celebrate failures, and we've crashed a number of drones. We've had some boneheaded things happen in our agency in that implementation, but we learned from them, and we've kind of celebrated those. We've gone down some roads, and we've stopped, and we've come back. So I think that's incredibly important. And again, stick to the execution. If you need the execution to change, then have a process that involves more than the people in the field, because there's a lot of pressure in the field as you're faced with something and you want to make a change because you're dedicated to the vision, but you're probably not thinking as clearly. And as a test pilot, I had no ability to change the parameters of the test in the air. I had a big plan, had to go back through a process, and yeah, we wasted some time and money because we had to land and go back through that. But it's probably why I'm alive today, and probably why we're successful. So I think that's another big important part. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very good presentation. Appreciate it. Applies to a lot of things. But I want to go a little, jump ahead a little bit on the vision thing. As a pilot and as a specialist in drones, what's your opinion of the visionary work that's underway at Uber and Airbus and others to allow these vehicles to carry people, even in kind of guided ways? I'm sure you've seen enough of that. I'm just interested in your opinion of where you think that's going.
Sure. Great question.
Car, so to speak.
So as a test pilot, I love to be on those tests. I can tell you I've worked a lot with drones and drones and manned aircraft. I can tell you this, I've never come close to hitting a drone because the drone was out of position. I've come close to swapping paint with a few of my friends because they were out of position. So the thing with drones is, like other IT, is they're sensing at a much higher rate than we are. They're able to assimilate an incredible amount of data and make decisions from that. So I think there are going to be incredible advances in safety and mobility as a result of that. There are always going to be, even in our drone mishaps, interestingly enough, 95% in the drones, there's 85 across aviation, 95% of our drone mishaps had a human element of performance that was the contributing factor. In 12,000 flights, we've actually had one crash because a rotor stopped working. So I'm incredibly excited about that. I look forward to being one of the first test pilots in that, if Uber will let me, and jumping in my first Uber helicopter.
So you talk about embracing failure in the organization. What were some of the keys to help your organization be able to take advantage of failure to move the mission forward?
So I think first, as the leader, I had to make sure that people understood that, because that's not something that you normally get in government, right? You are going to jail, you are going to be fired if we fail. And so I had to make that very clear. And we were doing some testing with a new drone, and and we were making some changes to it. And as a test pilot, I know that you change one thing over here and something completely unexpected happens. And I think letting your team go and do that where you know the risk is higher, but then creating a safe space around that. And then when it does happen, and we crashed about a $3,000 drone, and it didn't work anymore. And so we learned from that, but we also made sure that was communicated across the team and to our customers, that this is why we did it, and this was what we learned from it, and how this was going to be incredibly useful as we move forward, both in terms of our capability and this small cost was going to yield great savings in the future. I think you just have to stay at it because it's not natural for our space, our business space in government. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.